to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. And today on Power Talk Friday, I'm replaying an episode that originally aired in 2017. There are a few reasons for my decision to do this. The first is because as I have met you in real life over these last 6 months to a year, more and more often, someone is saying to me, would I do a show about this particular topic? Or have I done a show about this particular topic? Or I'm in need of a business coach. Who could you recommend? And I have to say that I do realize that with over 420 shows in the library at this point, that whether you are new and you have not listened to all of them, or even if you've been part of our bunch of crazies for a while, it's quite possible you've already forgotten what you've already heard. And Michele Williams is not someone I want you to forget about. More importantly, since Michele has launched her own podcast, Profit is a Choice, she has become very well known as a coach who has a mind and an eye for your financials. I mean, and this is good. That's a good thing because she does. Even in my most recent book, A Well-Designed Business, The Power Talk Friday Experts, Michele's chapter is called Plan to Profit at Every Step. Okay. You can get the book at luannigara.com/book2. And so, but the thing is that while she has been niching into this financial sphere, I need you to know that if you do need to get your financial house in order, yes, please call Michele. But I want you to know that she's so much more than this aspect. Michele can help you with your systems. She can help you with your confidence. She can help you with your workday structure. She is truly gifted. So I wanted to make sure to bring her back to your attention and to remind you of all the wonderful things and ways that Michele is capable of helping you achieve success in your business. Now, in case you are new to the show and you're not familiar with Michele, Michele is the owner of Scarlet Thread Consulting. Having worked in the interior design industry for more than 18 years, Michele is fiercely committed to helping each business owner attain and maintain profitability. Michele empowers her creative clients by not only building confidence to charge what they are worth, but by sharing education and systems for money management and financial awareness. With a degree from the University of South Carolina in Management Information Systems and 10 years of product development on financial software at Dun & Bradstreet Software, Michele has the unique ability to mix the logical and creative aspects of business with ease. She is a Profit First certified coach, and as I said, she hosts the popular podcast, Profit is a Choice. She is a much sought after speaker, and she is well known for her straightforward approach that is, at the same time, grace-filled and delivered with a healthy dose of love. And so today I'd like to reintroduce you to Michele Williams. Hey, Michele, thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Kate the Socialite suggested that you come on the show with me, and I was very happy when she emailed me your information and suggested that you come on the show, and she is exactly right. You are a powerhouse out there.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I had said this to you off air that once I started really looking into all of the things that you are doing to help interior designers and window treatment professionals and creatives make their business more profitable and more efficient, I'm in a little bit of awe here. So I think it's interesting. You come from a background in financial software development. And tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure that experience informs, how you run your business and teach people to run businesses, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Isn't that interesting? Such a left brain career to start out with, right?
Yeah.
And so just a little bit of background on me. So I started off as an accounting major for about 2 weeks. And then I loved numbers. I've always been a science and math girl, always loved numbers, but I've always been creative as well. Been an entrepreneur since I was 7 or 8, selling Girl Scout cookies all the way through. So I've always had kind of that left brain, right brain thing going, but I loved math. I know a lot of people are turned off by math. The more creative people are, it's just something they do to get through. But for me, I really enjoyed it. And so I was an accounting major for 2 weeks. And then I realized that in accounting, even though I had an A in the class and enjoyed the numbers and I loved how logical it all was, the problem for me was it was very stifling. I felt that I was going to be stuck in a cubicle somewhere with a calculator and not get out. And I'm extremely social at the same time. And so I thought, is there a way that I can work with numbers and not just do accounting? It just, it seemed like I needed a little more than that. And so I ended up majoring in management information systems and administrative management, which is kind of like a computer science and business mixed together. So it's the processes and procedures side of business, of course, information systems, how workflow works. And then I had the computer programming. And then the part that I think is the funniest is the first job. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. I also wanted to be a teacher when I was a little girl.
Oh.
So I started off wanting to be a teacher, and then I decided I wanted to be an accountant. And so then I decided that wasn't going to work. So I did software, went to work for a company called Dun & Bradstreet Software. So it was a division of Dun & Bradstreet here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a South Carolina girl and came here to start my career. And it was funny, the first job they offered me was working in support for accounts payable programs and on a mainframe. So that dates me, right? So anyway, I worked on mainframe. We didn't have PCs at the time, and I worked on mainframes and supported accounts payable systems. And so I learned the ins and outs of accounts payable, general ledger, purchasing and inventory. And then throughout my career, the next thing that I did was I became a development manager and built project accounting systems so that we could literally go all the way from inventory all the way through. Now, who knew that years later I would have a business where I could use all that? And so that's where it started. And I did that for 10 years. And then I came home to raise my children. They were 1 and 3 at the time. And we don't have family members, grandparents, or anything like that where we are. And so I came home to raise my children, and in the process started a window treatment business, making custom window treatments. And,
what's so funny,
years later, I used all the rest of it. So I always
combined it all,
I started
right?
with Windows. Yeah, I started with Windows, and then I just moved to a different type of Windows.
Right. Well, what's really funny is I knew a lot of your background, but that little nuance there that when you decided to raise your children, you started the window treatment business. I think it's an interesting coincidence because, of course, we haven't even, gotten to it yet, but you're the president of the National Association of the Window Coverings Association of America. And we had Deb Pinelli on the show, who's the president of the New Jersey chapter, and she started the same exact way. She had a business background, was working in corporate, and then when her boys were born, she decided to stay home to raise them, but started a window treatment business in order to support us. That's hysterical. I mean,
exactly.
It's funny.
There are a lot that start this way.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's fun. It's just interesting because usually, as somebody's telling me their story, I know it all because I've researched it, right? But this was like a little nuance that I knew, of course, that you had a window treatment business, but I didn't realize the exact analogy. That's pretty cool. That's funny.
Yeah, when I worked in software, of course, I still loved all the creative things. We had just bought a new home, and I was taking interior design courses, like a continuing ed, at night after working. And then I came home and started doing window coverings in my own home, making window treatments. I had these huge, 22-foot windows in our family room, and of course, you're not going to buy that off a shelf anywhere. No. And I loved it. So I started sewing and making things. And I'm not even going to kid you when I tell you this is how my business started. I didn't start with a business plan. So I started because I was sewing and making things for my home. Of course, we're in a brand new subdivision, so there's play dates and bunko and all that goes on, getting to know your neighbors. And it was actually in January of 2000, my doorbell rang and two of my neighbors were standing there, and one had a bowl of fabric in her hands. And I'm looking at her like, hi girls, what are you here for? And they're like, hey, we've noticed what you have in your house and we'll pay you if you'll make them for us.
Isn't
that
something?
Luann, is how my business started. So it wasn't like with a bunch of forethought and planning and this awesome business plan. It started because they were willing to pay me and they were standing on my front doorstep and I loved it.
And you
so
thought, I think I'll say yes.
Sure, I can do that.
Well,
I'd been looking for something to do and thinking about it. And so I was like, yeah, let's do that.
Yes, that's terrific. I love that little story there. That's very interesting. So now you transition, and of course you're a smart lady and you do come from a great background in business. So you then do turn this into a business, and you have this workroom where you are making window treatments for people. And then there's another transition that happens, right? So what happens now is you are, I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to just make an assumption based on the research I've done on you, that you're just such a good darn business woman that, like, people knocked on your door and said, could you make our drapes? They probably started, it sounds like to me, they knocked on your door and said, can you help us run our businesses? Because now you're a business consultant. I mean, I just totally did a leap there and said that that's how it happened. Is it
you
like
just
that?
Took 17 years, but that's great.
But is that the same thing? Like, you just became known as somebody who was like a super rock star organized business person, and you realized that you could help people run their businesses too? I mean, how did that transition happen, Michele?
Sure. Okay, so I started off, remember, without the business plan.
Yes.
And so what that pretty much means was I did most things wrong, even though I had a business degree. I mean, just being honest,
yes,
right?
No,
because I didn't come into it very planned and prepared.
Okay.
And so I'm just sewing, I'm making things. Of course, I'd worked through the entire neighborhood. Word of mouth takes off. So now I'm doing things for friends of friends of friends. And long story short, jumping 3 to 4 years myself, I do my taxes and realize I'm not making any money.
Oh.
I am killing myself. I'm busting my rear end. I'm making things for people's fourth homes, and I can't even pay for braces for my own child. We've got a problem.
Right.
And I called my husband, had a little mini breakdown, was expecting him to be a best friend. Instead, he was my own coach at the time, and not a hired coach. He just loved me enough to be honest. And he's like, what the heck are you doing? You've run $1 million budgets. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of angry, to be honest, and I hung up. And then I thought to myself, he's right. Mm-hmm. And so what I started doing, Luann, was going back and falling back on all of my business that I'd done for 10 years and my education, and thinking to myself, I really am running a business. It's just scaled way down from the business that I ran before. And so I need to be thinking very clearly on what are the business principles that I need to put in place on a much smaller scale. Mm-hmm. And then I had to do a couple of things. I had to decide to be committed. So this is no longer a hobby, or as one of my clients calls it, a jobby. That's not what it is. Isn't that funny? It's not a jobby anymore. It needs to be a true business. And so what does business look like? So I started putting all of that into practice and just saw things soar, just started making money. Then I went through efficiency planning the next year on how I can, make the same amount, work half the time, because then I'm poised to grow again. So I just kept doing those things. And then over time, people would come to me and say, oh, what are you doing? How do you do that? Mm-hmm. And I started sharing it. And then I went through a time where I was worked with some other women. We owned the management company for the Custom Home Furnishings Academy. Did that for 4 years, put out a magazine, and taught classes. And then when we sold that, I decided, because the calls kept coming in from business owners saying, not just teach me, but journey this with me. Oh. Look at my numbers. Look at my books. So they didn't just want education. They literally needed a personal assistant, coach, consultant to say, here's what it looks like in my business. Because we both know we can have a window coverings business, we can have an interior design business. There are no two just the same, because there are no two people just the same. Mm-hmm. And so then it was, I really have just dedicated my time and energy to helping business owners make it theirs and do it in a way that feels right for them, because there are multiple ways to do things. There's not just one way.
Right.
And helping them realize what supports how they're made and how they think, because if I can help them understand that, then they actually, it's kind of like, a calendar or a planner, or if somebody were to tell you, here's what you have to go do, even with an exercise program, it's not the same for everybody. So finding what you're willing to invest in and to do in a way that supports you and your abilities and the way you think and the way you manage, and then you have the ability to stick to it and to do it
right. So
longer.
So what you're saying is that there are principles in business that we all understand and we all know, but people process them differently and they understand them differently, and they respond differently to different motivations or cues or stimuli or something. And you're saying that you help people figure out what their little push buttons are, and then help them navigate how to react and be more successful in their business. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you can watch out on, any social media platform right now. And, there are some people that their idea of marketing is they want to go out and just hit Instagram. Somebody else wants to hit Facebook. Somebody else is in the magazine. They're all great. Right. It's just finding the way that works for each person. And the same thing happens with how you keep up with information. My son is dyslexic. And so I learned a lot by learning how to help him on how we all process information, and then how we learn. Some people are auditory, some are kinesthetic, some are visual and tactile. And if I'm forcing you to learn by listening, but you learn by seeing or by doing, it's not going to work for you. Right. And so that is kind of what I've mixed in and merged in, is trying to help people understand how they were created and what their strengths and abilities are, and then work in their strengths instead of forcing them to do what they think is expected and to work in their weakness, because then they struggle, they don't like the business, they lose their ability to be creative, and they're frustrated. And why would we do that if we're building our own business? Why would I build a business of frustration instead of one of excitement? I mean, there's enough hard work just when you're excited about it, right?
That's the truth, right? It's very true. The day is long and the day is hard, even if you're happy to be doing what you're doing. Yes, exactly right. And of course, everybody, human nature, it's so much easier and more fulfilling for all of us if at the end of the day the process has been at least a comfortable, happy process, even though it might have been a difficult day or a challenging day, right? But if we're working...
Right, and it has to make sense to you.
Right. Okay, so you kind of mix life coaching in with business coaching, it sounds like to me, right?
See, there's no way to separate it, because I'm the same person who lives my life as I am the same person who runs my business. So my character doesn't change, my habits don't change, my strengths don't change, because I walk out of my office into my den. And so I don't think how much do we hear about balance these days, Luann? Right. And there's no way to be balanced if we don't think about the complement of the whole person with everything that we're doing. Right.
It's very deep stuff. And so then I touched on it a little bit, how you are the national president of the Window Coverings Association of America. And of course, I also mentioned that we had Deb Pinelli on the program back in October, I think it was, of 2016. And she is New Jersey president of your chapters. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your experience of being the national president, and about the organization, and why you feel that it's a valuable organization for even a full service interior designer to avail herself or himself of a niche organization like this.
Okay. I hope you have about 14 hours as we start digging in. Just kidding. First, let me just clarify. I'm past president of the Window Covering Association. It's okay. I was president until last July, and Julie Wood is the current president. So I just want to clear that up. But so when I started my business, remember, I started because somebody rang my doorbell. And throughout my career of window coverings, I have done wholesale, where I did, all of my work for designers, as well as retail, where I was going in and working with a homeowner, and then, of course, selling my products. So I've done wholesale and retail, and probably everything in the middle of that. And what I started realizing, I think with anything, with whether it's interior design or window coverings or photography, anything where we're creative in nature, it as much as you're with other people, it can be very isolating and you can feel very alone, especially when it comes to the business practices and, the nitty gritty behind the scenes, kind of the 90% of the business.
Right.
Yeah, right. Everybody
so
thinks that what we do is all the beautiful. And I was talking to a designer yesterday and I was like, that's like 5%. No, I said, that's like 10%. She said, Michele, it's 5%. The pretty's 5%. I'm like, okay. So I started looking around to find my people, my tribe, my business tribe, my community. And that was years ago, back in 2000, I want to say 6, 7. And the Window Covering Association of America was opening up an Atlanta chapter. And so I joined that chapter and became president of the Atlanta chapter in 2008 and was president for 2008 and 9. And then I was asked to be on the board of directors for the national organization in 2009, and I'm still there as past president. So I guess I'm about, almost 7-8 years in on the board. It is a volunteer position. And so I say that because, if it wasn't something that I didn't feel strongly in, I certainly wouldn't give 8 years of my time and dedication to building up an industry to support other business owners. It is, to me, one of the biggest aspects of my business growing, thriving, being successful. And it's that you're speaking to people whose eyeballs don't glaze over when you bring up the topic. They're just as excited about the topic as you are.
Right.
And it's a group of professionals that get together. And again, we're learning every month constantly at the local level and at the national level. And we're learning from each other, we're learning about each other, and we're learning about window coverings and window safety. Interior designers, as an interior designer, there's a lot of money that can be made at the window.
Yes.
A lot of money. I mean, you and I both are going to be at the International Window Coverings Expo. And Grace, I know I'd listened to her interview with you a week or two ago, and she made the comment about expressing to interior design students at one time, do you realize how much money can be made at the window? And I really believe that a lot of designers are fearful because that residential window coverings piece is not a piece that is taught heavily in the schools. And I know that because I'm speaking at some of the local colleges trying to help them understand, and to give them a little more information. And so we get together and we understand, we will have conversations on motorization, on shade cord safety, which is a hot button these days, right? Very, very important. We discuss fabrics. We discuss, how fabric reacts. Why can I not get a polyester to hang in little soldier pleats? Because it's polyester and this is what it does. And, hardware, and then business practices and social media. So it just spans the whole thing, and it's centered around window coverings. And so just the community, the learning from a national perspective. There are discounts that we get with vendors that, more than, not that it has to pay for our membership, but that more than pays for our membership. There are opportunities to learn. They have a lunch and learn almost every month. And just, I don't know, I can tell you my business would not be a success. My business would not thrive had I not had community of people that cared about the same things that I cared about and that were striving to make their businesses fantastic. And that's both from the designer side as well as the wholesale workroom and the installers and everything in between.
Yes. Well, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about it a little bit because I do agree with both yourself and Grace that interior designers sometimes shy away from the window treatment portion of the project because it is so complicated and it is difficult and it's expensive. But at the same time, that's exactly the point. It is such a skill and expertise that if you even can get yourself in a situation where you have a working knowledge of it and then you hire somebody like myself or anybody else to be your go-to person. But I know that the designers that I work with, the ones that take some responsibility for having that working knowledge. I in my situation, in my business, I never expect the interior designer to know everything. What does she need me or he need me for if they do, right? And of course, I always say to people, they're like, well, why do I even need you to begin with? And I'm like, well, you know how to paint a room. Are you going to put the paintbrush in your hand, or are you going to hire a painter? Like, let's be real. You've got a whole room to design. But that base knowledge and understanding and not being afraid of the window treatment really can add a lot of profit builder to your project. I mean, what's funny is for me is it's usually a newer business designer in business that really doesn't understand how expensive the window treatments are going to be. And the unfortunate part is they often come towards the end of the project. And so a lot of times, if you haven't done proper budgeting, now your client isn't prepared, you're not prepared. And you call one of us in and we say, well, the window treatments for this one living room are going to be $7,000. And they look at you like you're out of your mind. You know what I mean?
You know what? The window treatments to me, and I know you've probably heard the analogy, and you may have even used it, Luann, it's the jewelry of the room.
Yes.
It's like going out and going to an event, buying great shoes and a great dress, and not thinking about the earrings and the necklace.
Exactly.
And then you just kind of look plain.
Right.
And so you have to plan and budget at the beginning for the jewelry, for the necklace of the room, for the thing that ties it all together, which is fabric, usually at the windows. And there, not only is it expensive to have done, I look at it more as just an investment,
right? Because
oh my goodness, just security. You're talking about, the aesthetics of it, as well as the R value when you start lining and interlining and doing all these other things. So there's just so much benefit to it for the homeowner as well as for the designer and the workroom. And your point about, thinking, do I really need to work with you? I think that's where the designers that are and the window covering experts, the people that in business in general that are the most successful are people that build a team.
Right.
And that, again, is why I love WCAA. That's why I love Design Collective in my local WCAA or the virtual WCAA. It's building this team that says, WCAA, we have our hashtag never in business alone. And that's the truth.
Right.
We are not in business alone. And if we are, that is, that's a big reason to get into trouble and to fail, is to think that we have to do it all by ourselves.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I think that, it is, it's a very valuable part of the project. Anyway, so I just feel like that's my little soapbox on that particularly for a newer designer, to at least reach out to the different trades, and whether it's window treatments, it's tile, it's, wall covering experts, and start, like you said, the relationships with them. And if you find those relationships within a design collective or within the WCAA or within ASID, with your industry partners and so forth, but educate yourself and make friends with these industry professionals. They
want to help you.
Yes.
We want to help people.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of the benefits of WCAA with everybody. Now, we are going to get into some meat and potatoes, but before we do that, I just want to you touched on it, that you are also presenting at the IWCE in Charlotte, the International Window Coverings Expo, and you have two presentations that you're doing on Wednesday morning. On March 8th, you are going to be giving planning for profitable window coverings by window covering business by pricing your services right. And on Thursday, the 9th, you are going to be talking about Be Your Brand, how to differentiate yourself from your competition. So these are two of the topics that you're going to be discussing at IWCE. And if anybody is interested in their going, I just know that you're going to knock it out of the park with these topics. Do you want to give us a couple of minutes on each one of these topics and what people can expect to learn, Michele?
Sure. In the first one, the planning for profit, I'm just a really big proponent of the fact that we should be making money if we're working all day, every day, all year. It seems to go together. And I worked, a couple of years and didn't make any money. And so I know how painful that is. And that that. I don't want anybody else to have to feel that way. So in that class, we're going to be talking about, profit doesn't usually come by accident. It comes with a plan. And so we're going to understand what that plan is, how to not only make profit, but how to save the profit so it doesn't get sucked up in growth or other expenses of the company, because that's really important.
Very good.
Yeah. And then in the Be Your Brand, we're going to talk about, I think we really do need to understand who we are. And like you made the comment earlier that there are multiple segments in any industry, right? And the same thing, everybody has their own, kind of specialness, their uniqueness that they put out into the world, and that is in their business. And so if we understand that, we can sell it. Because many times I'll hear people say, oh my gosh, that is such self-promotion. And my answer to them is no, it's solution promotion.
Right.
And so it's really understanding the problem that you solve and being able to articulate that when you meet people, because people aren't buying you, they're buying the solution to their problem. And I think many of us have struggled at some point in our career with what is the real problem that we solve. But when we answer that, it clears everything up. It clears up our ideal client. It clears up what we do, how we do it, the products and services that we offer, and the price point that we put on them. And so I really think it kind of goes back to really understanding that and then being that brand. So don't diminish it, or don't say you're one thing and then act a different way. That we're giving split messages. And so just really helping interior designers and window covering experts think about who they are and why they do what they do.
I love that. I think
so that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such an important topic, and we've discussed it a couple of times on the show. Nicole Heimer was here just a little bit ago, and she and I had a long discussion about identifying your brand, and she had a little aha moment for me that she said, say the sentence, oh, that's the designer. Thinking about yourself, oh, she's the designer, he's the designer, that la la la. What comes to your mind? And start to think about that. And what's interesting is I like the other thing that you said. We have on a Power Talk Friday recently, we had Heather Ann Havenwood here, and she is the author of The Sexy Boss. And so she puts a fun spin on it, but her message is that typically as women, particularly, we're not comfortable self-promoting. Just what you just said. And she said, step in your space, figure out what your secret sauce is, and don't be afraid to declare it and identify it and share it with your sphere of influence, because that's how you attract, like you just said, the people and the clients to you that are going to respond to you, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, I love it. And the thing is that it's interesting, and I've said this a billion times on the show. I have no problem when multiple people, experts like yourself, so here we have Nicole Heimer, we have Heather Ann Havenwood, we have yourself, Michele, that have a similar lesson to teach us, because we all, like you said in the beginning, hear it a different way. We learn it a different way. One word, one sentence from one coach or one advisor just unlocks that little aha moment for us. So I know that this is a big, it's a big topic in being successful in business, in really identifying what your company is different to your community and why you are different than the designer down the block. And so I don't shy away from different people who want to tell me the same thing, because I never know.
It's just truth, right? It's
yes.
truth. And so I think too, sometimes we need to hear something. I know for me sometimes, especially if I'm having a block or if I'm having like an argument in my head. Please tell me other people do that, right?
Right.
With yourself in your head. And I'm having this argument, and then I hear it. Yes. And then I turn around and I hear it again, and then I hear it again. And I'm like, okay, if this is the third person or the third place that I've seen this, or, it's coming up again, I really need to stop and take notice of this. I need to think about this. And that's why, I'll give you a good example. So both my sons are off at college. And when we took our oldest off to college 4 years ago, here's what they said. They said, listen, parents, how they kind of pull the parents away from the kids. Listen, parents, Your son or daughter is going to come home from college and they're going to tell you this great new idea that they've heard, and they're going to be so excited about it, and you're going to be angry, and you're going to think, I've been telling you that for 18 stinking years. They said, instead, the better thing to do is go, wow, son, that's awesome. Now, what are you going to do with that new information? Right. They said, because sometimes we need to hear it from multiple places. And yes, you may have been telling them for 18 years, but they weren't ready to hear it.
Right.
They weren't ready to hear it and to absorb it. And it's interesting, in my coaching practice, this is no lie. A majority of the women that come to me at some point will say to me, at the very beginning, my husband is upset that I'm working with you. I'm like, why is your husband upset that you're working with me? Because he's been trying to tell me this for years, but he just makes me angry and he doesn't understand, and we get into a fight. And I'm like, it's okay. And they're like, but you speak my language, but you understand. And then a little bit, maybe a month in, 2 months in, they come back and go, my husband loves you. And I'm like, your husband's never met me. They're like, yeah, but he loves who I'm becoming. And so now he's okay that you're the one telling me. Aww. And it took me a while to understand the correlation. And the correlation is the same thing with my college kid, that the professor's telling him something I've told him for 18 years, but he hears it differently. Right. It's to your point that when you hear something from professionals multiple times, you start to go, okay, wait a minute, there's a thread running through all of this that is the same. Let me go, check the veracity.
Yes.
Let me go look at that. Let me see how that applies to me.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's one of the first things that we have to do as business people is identify what that means for us, what our brand is, what our core values are, what our mission is, because it really informs everything that you do from there out. So I love it. And I have no problem talking about it over and over again. So now here's the one thing that I would love to get into. I want to just share with everybody. You definitely should take a look at Michele's website, scarletthreadconsulting.com, because Michele is really, we have only scratched the surface of all the different business topics that Michele works with people on in helping you be more profitable. So I'm going to run through some of the titles so that you have a little teaser of what's out there. But we have Taking Care of You, where you talk about like you said, the work-life balance and making yourself happy in your business first, creating a healthy business where you cultivate a client list and that works for you, right? A little bit on that. Planning for business, planning for success, how to chunk your time, imposter syndrome, understanding your value, negotiating with confidence, one of my favorite topics next to sales, connect the dots. Why are you in business to begin with? Business calisthenics, create, a good business, build a business background, pumping up your profit and loss, tell your story. Seriously, does this take that long? I think that's pretty cool, where you talk about what's billable and different topics along those lines. Safeguarding your business, the top 10 reasons businesses fail in the first 2 to 4 years, and cool, calm, confident communication, the key to basics and key to success in communicating. So you have, and this is, I only touch the surface. You do retreats. That's not even the regular online courses. I know. It's insane how much you have available to help us out there. So you do retreats and you do online courses, and then you come and give presentations, and you do 1 and 2 day workshops that people can hire you to come in. So I just wanted to give people a teaser of all the things, but you and I agreed that we would take one of these topics today and sort of break it down for about 15 or 20 minutes in a meaningful way. And because this is a topic that's been addressed at least 2 times on the show off the top of my head. And what it is the planning for success, how to chunk your time and how to calendar and plan and monitor. Okay. So Stacey Brown Randall was on the show in the fall of 2016, and she talked about this. And Jim Riviello, the Leadership X University coach, he also talked about batching time and setting a time, but we did it in a helicopter way. And you and I talked today that we would sort of really help people break it down in an actionable way and really explain the reason that it really helps us move our business forward. So to give us a little overview of chunking time and why it's important for us, Michele, as business owners.
Sure. We only have two real currencies. We have time and we have money. We spend our money out of our checkbook, right? And we spend our time in our calendar. We also have this law called Parkinsons Law. Lou, I don't know if you've heard of Parkinsons Law, but it pretty much means that, we're going to fill up the space for whatever time that we have. So for example, if I have a project that's not due for 3 weeks, I might not do it for 3 weeks, but if it were due tomorrow, I would get it done tomorrow. Okay. All right. So because that is the way, it's kind of like if you have money in your checkbook, you're going to spend it. You take the money out, you're not going to spend it because it's not there for you to see and to evaluate. We all have the same amount of time. And so when you start thinking about time as a currency and how am I spending it, it makes you stop and think about efficiency and about what's most important. We've all seen the analogy of taking the big rocks and putting them in the jar and then putting in the pebbles and then putting in the sand and the water. If you do it all in the right order, everything fits. If you do it out of order and put the water in first, you won't be able to fit everything in. And so really what it comes down to when we're looking at our time in our business, I am a huge fan of E-Myth Revisited.
I know,
we
right?
have to
That's
work
a great
in
book.
the business, on the business, so that it works for us. And the only way to do that is to have, time to work on the business, to do those entrepreneur and managerial activities. And I have found in my own 17, 18 years of business, if I don't plan for that time, it doesn't happen. And then I also started realizing, remember when I told you I went back to efficiencies within my own business so that I could work less and make the same amount so that then I could grow again? One of the things I realized is that when I kept switching gears in my business, meaning, let's say I went out to an install and then I went and chose fabric and then I tried to make something and then, oh my goodness, I probably should pay a bill. I just felt like I was ping-ponging all over the place and I just always felt behind, like I was chasing, never in front of. And that's a very reactive instead of a proactive approach. And I feel better being proactive because there's enough things that happen that cause me to be reactive without me starting my day that way.
Right.
And so the first thing that I did was I decided to take my calendar, my planner, whether it's online, paper, doesn't matter, but however you keep up with time, and to put in what I call your big rocks. So that means that every vacation, every doctor's appointment, every day my kids were out of school, whatever it was that was important to me and needed to be scheduled first, I went and put that on my calendar and blocked that time. Then what I did was I started thinking about in my business, how much time do I need to set aside to do business activities, such as business development? And, some experts will tell you that you need to even spend one day a week rather on marketing your business or building the marketing plan and networking and all of that. So I started looking for my particular business at the place that I was, how much time did I need for business development? And then I blocked that time out. Now, let me just stop right here and make a comment. Some of my clients find that they do better to do an hour a morning on business development to set up the rest of their day. So they may block 8:30 to 9:30 or 9 to 10, and they do business development. We'll talk about what you do in that in a minute.
Okay.
Some find out that for them, it's better to do, like a lot of my designers like to do a Monday morning where they have a meeting, they go over all their client projects for the week and kind of get it set up. And then it may even be a Wednesday afternoon or a Thursday morning, they do another half a day of business development. And that's where they place all their orders and check in with everything so that it's kind of at the beginning of the week and kind of the middle of the week. And then, you're back to Monday again. Okay. So they block off maybe a full day, a half a day, whatever it is they have to do to run their business and to work with their team. All those kind of little, some of them could be billable, but a lot of the little non-billable tasks. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then whatever's left, they think about, and I have my clients think about it this way. If I have to leave the office, is it better for me to stay in the headspace of design or in the headspace of install or in sourcing, right? Same even for window coverings. Right. Because it's the jumping back and forth where you have to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. Sometimes it literally, it sounds crazy, but we may have to dress differently on install days. You're not showing up in your 3-inch heels the way that you might if you were showing up on, client presentation day. So it shifts the way we think. Our mindsets are different. It switches the way we dress. It changes the way we approach things. And so if we can kind of put like things together, we stay in one mode of thinking, one mode of activity. We plan and prepare and, get our car ready for whatever we have to have, and you go through that day. And so when you start to put things together, it helps. Here's another big one, the finances. because I'm also a Profit First certified coach, one of the things we teach that is a great principle, and that is to only do your bill payment twice a month. So this running back and forth and paying and paying and paying, you're in and out, in and out, in and out. If you can batch it and pay everything on the 15th and the 30th or the 10th and the 25th, and then you can work with your vendors, you can work with your credit cards and adjust the dates.
Right.
Then it allows you to sit down at one time and pay everything. You're watching your numbers at one time. You are batching, if you will. You are collecting items that need to be done together. And then you're in that headspace and you're less distracted by everything else you have to do because you have set aside time to focus on that one thing. And so that's kind of like some of the meat and potatoes of it. And honestly, you have to adjust it for each business. So I know when I first started, I only took off Friday mornings, and that was my business development. Then I realized I needed all of Friday. So then I started, marking off all of Friday that I did not do work with clients directly. Instead, I was working on business. Then I realized, oh my goodness, I need another half day. And then it was 2 days. So then I tried to do Thursday and Friday as my business development days. But then I realized by the end of Wednesday, I was exhausted from working with all the clients. And so now what I do is I do 2 half days and a full day. And then it allows me to chunk morning and afternoon. Then in my business development time, I keep an ongoing list of here's what I will cover when that comes. We have gotten into this idea that if an email comes in, we need to answer it. If the phone comes in, we need to answer it. And it has us so distracted.
Yes.
I just turn it off. I turn it off.
You do.
There is, look, nobody is going to die over a window covering, not.
Well, I'm not so
being at
sure
the right
about that.
length.
I think I've run into people who are quite sure they're going to.
They think they're going to. And, sometimes we have to, with love, prove them wrong. But I just turn it off because if not, and I turned off all my pop-ups because if I am in the middle of something and it pops up, it distracts me even for the moment.
Right.
And I can't get anything done. So I turn it off. I might spend 30 minutes or an hour and then I might go check it. Or spend 2 or 3 hours and then go check it. And then I'll take time to respond. But if it is dinging at me and flashing at me all day, I cannot put my undivided attention to the task at hand. It stretches it out longer, and they really didn't get my best at that.
Right.
And so, for us to be able to be in control enough to block it a little bit, and I'm not talking days, weeks, we're talking a couple of hours.
Right.
And you literally get more done much more quickly than if you were ping pong. I mean, I just felt like a ping pong ball.
Yes, I totally can relate to that whole scenario of the ping ponging around because I feel like, and I mean, I've been in that situation. I can relate to it. There's no question. But my question though is I think, and maybe I'm being naive here, but when I think, and I'm not being naive. In other words, I have 2 separate experiences. When I work on the podcast, I have been doing this for 18 months, working on this podcast, and I did exactly what you said. Wednesday and Thursday are podcast days. These are the days that I interview. These are the days that I edit. These are the days I record intro and outro. These are the days I email and exchange information with potential guests. So, if you email me on Friday and you're going to be on my interview, if I'm interviewing the following Wednesday, unless it's really like an important thing, I'm not going to answer you on Friday. So what I'm saying is I've locked that down. Okay.
Yes. And so that is exactly what I'm talking about. And I can promise you that we're in the middle of this conversation. You probably don't have 14 things screaming at you on your, your computer and on your phone because it would be completely distracting.
Right. Exactly. So, but here's where there's a rub for me. So in that regard, I'm comparing my experience to a solo designer. I'm a one for this is it takes a whole village to put this podcast together, I promise you. But for the most part, I'm here 2 days a week by myself and I do this. So I compare that to a designer that's a solo and she is going to chunk their time, okay? But when I think about the crossover to WindowWorks, where I have 8 employees and we're going to run, 150 clients through that business in 1 month. I wonder, it's so much more challenging to batch time there, because when I think about the advice to just simply turn off for 2 hours the emails, I know that there's occasions where a client is, calling to cancel her installation appointment because her kid just got a phone call. She just got a phone call from the school. So I find that it's harder to live and walk the walk there.
Okay. And so that is you in a managerial role, right?
Okay.
Which is a little bit different and a lot coming at you all the time. And maybe you cannot cut it off for 2 hours, or maybe it comes into a generic email address for installs and somebody else watches that email for you while you're taking an hour to do something on the business. So,
okay. So what you're suggesting is that my whole business doesn't shut down for 2 hours, but me as the manager and the leader does, and then I have my people.
And,
okay.
Yes, and it may even be that your bookkeeper,
Right.
For example, if you have your bookkeeper who is doing your books, you don't want them answering emails and jumping into other stuff in the middle. You want them to be able to stop and focus on the books and then go back.
Right.
I'm not saying that if you know
so
that something's
like
happening and it's
turns.
an SOS.
Yes.
Yeah, especially in a larger organization, or even just, hey, we're having a Monday morning team meeting. We're all going to get together for a few minutes, even for 30 minutes to an hour. Well, you don't expect them to be sitting and texting their mom or their friend while they're doing it. So it's shutting off the distraction, having the meeting, which can actually be shorter meetings. Things can actually be done much more quickly if we just focus on them. Okay. And what I'm suggesting is that we have become so reactionary that we think that we have to answer the email immediately. And granted, there are some things that are SOSs. Don't show up, my kid's throwing up. Okay, fine. You want to know that quickly.
Right.
But, hey, I want to talk to you about next week's install. That can wait 30 minutes.
Right.
That just like the podcast example.
Right.
So I think it is in every business understanding the difference between urgent and important.
Well, I just had an aha moment in your discussion, and I've had this. It's a perfect example of what I said earlier. I've had this discussion multiple times, and you just had a breakthrough moment for me, because I have often thought about, when we've had this discussion on the podcast, that as a solo, this is great advice. You should do this, and I think it's easy. And I've often come away from the discussion and gone, but I don't know how I could do that in my business. It's too big. And the answer is just what you said. I have always processed this suggestion of chunking time as a group activity in my business, that me, Kim, and Adriana are all chunked for 2 hours without answering email or telephone. And it's like, hello, Luann, rotate it. Maybe I'm on Mondays from 3 to 5, but Kim's on Tuesdays from 9 to 11. Hello, earth-shattering breakthrough.
Yes, I worked in software support for a few years. And so what we had to do was, we were, fixing the code, we were putting in patches, we were answering the phone. But if we were all sitting on the phone, we could never solve the problem.
Right.
And so that's exactly what we did. Was you two people are going to be manning the phone, the email, you're going to be responsive to clients. You two are going to go off and do research. You're going to fix the problem. You're going to solve, whatever is in front of us. And then we're going to switch.
Yes.
So that then you have an opportunity to focus and to think,
love it.
to not be, some managers, this is no lie, and maybe this is a bit extreme, but when they go into that time frame, they have little white flags and they put a little flag up that says, I'm kind of in a focused moment.
Nice.
So if it's not important, and then they look for the other manager that doesn't have a flag.
And
that is a visual so that people don't knock on the door, hey, Luann, do you have a minute? And start a conversation. It's a soft visual that says, I'm really kind of focused right now, and they don't leave it up forever. It's 30 minutes, an hour. It's just especially when you don't have a door that you can shut to kind of signal that you are in a focused time. And it is really, really hard to come in and out, in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
So
I love
think it's giving you the grace to have the moment to do what you need to do.
I love it because, what's so funny is I've spent so much time on the podcast constantly trying to assimilate the big business ideas to and correlate them to the single solo designer. So one of the things that I really, go out of my way to do that. If somebody comes up with a great big business idea and I say, hey, as a solo, this is how it would work for you, or this is what it might look like, or think about it this way. But this is one concept that I couldn't get to go the other way. It was like great for all the solos, but what about us that have whole staffs? So,
right.
Thank you.
It's not shutting down the whole staff at one time.
What I love is it's so simple. And it's like, hello has totally gone over my head for a year. So
it's life changing. It really is. And business changing, because you just feel like the freedom of, for at least the next 30 to 45 minutes, nobody's going to come in here and bother me, rightly so. And I can just think, and then I can just get this done, mark it off my list, and move on to the next thing. And then I'm available again.
And it's funny is because we're recording now in the beginning of 2017, and there's a lot of things that I've learned in the last year with the podcast that I say, oh, we do that already. Isn't that awesome? Well, that's why, we're doing this so well, because that's a great idea, and we didn't realize we're doing it. But then there's been a lot of things that I've learned from professionals, and I'm like, we come back to WindowWorks and we're going to do this, and this is going to help us be better, and blah, blah, blah. And this is one of the things, and it's, we're recording, it's February 1st, we're recording this, right? And it's a full month of the new year, and this has been on the little nagging thing on my shoulder for 2 months, because I've been like, Luann, every professional suggests chunking and batching. You've got to instill this. You've got to incorporate this at WindowWorks. But I haven't been able to see how it would work. And now I'm so happy and grateful. I hope any of the people.
It's just giving yourself the ability to focus. And
it's the alternating. And so that's the big aha for me. And so for anybody that out there that has even 2 or 3 people on staff, I hope that you just had the same aha moment. Well, maybe you weren't as slow to the party as I was. Maybe you got it 6 months ago. But anyway, well, Michele, I have to tell you, obviously, you have a lot to teach us, and your information is so sound and so valuable. And I really do encourage everybody to go to your website, the Scarlet Thread. It's scarletthreadconsulting.com, right? Not the Scarlet Thread Consulting.com. And definitely everybody that's listening, that's going to be at IWCE, please go up and introduce yourself to Michele and let her know that you heard her here on the podcast, and get into her seminars, because you'll have firsthand, situation there to be able to hear some more details and things that she's teaching us. And I really do thank you so much for sharing your information, and I personally thank you for my aha moment.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Luann, one thing that you can do on that aha moment, and you guys may already do this in your company, is to have like a Google Calendar, a shared calendar, and have the time blocked off, and you can color code it per person so you'll know who's on and who's off.
Oh.
It's a really nice way to have a visual.
That reminds me, and I almost left without saying it. I saw something on your website where you are offering calendars. Did you design a personal calendar that kind of structures this towards creatives? Tell me about that before we go.
Sure. Yeah, I have a planner. It's called Plan with Purpose for creative professionals. And I created it to work with my clients, right? Because I started noticing that they were having some difficulty, not only with a place to collect the information, but with goal setting. And so one of the beautiful things about the planner that I have is that it's not just a calendar. So you actually plan your goals in the 5 areas that are most important to each of us, community, social, physical, financial, that kind of thing. And then you break them down into the 90-day task, and then you break them down into monthly task and weekly tasks and daily. So you can track it. And then at the end of every week, there is an opportunity to reflect on, this is a big one. What did I learn this week, right? What went really well, and how am I going to celebrate? Because especially as individual business owners, sometimes for those of us that do feel alone, we don't celebrate the small successes. We don't even know how to recognize them. And so at the end of the year, you'll have 52 things to celebrate, right? You'll have 52 things that you learned, and you have the ability to batch your time and to think about it. And there are reminders in there. And, there's some encouragement and words in there that will just help you be successful. And then at the end of the year, be able to look back on the journey. There's a place to create your vision. So it's really kind of a vision setting, goal setting, planner, organizer, all in one. And I'll say this, I still use an online calendar as well, because sometimes I need to be able to see when I'm out. But the details of my life that you can't put in a Google Calendar, and that writing, there's something about writing that
makes
it really
real.
impacts us.
Like,
It does.
Calls you out on the carpet, right? You wrote it down.
Absolutely.
Are you going to do it or not?
And I'm putting it on paper, and then I'm sharing it. And so the planner is like that. So on my website, you can see it. I think it's under shop. You should be able to see it. There's a daily and a weekly planner there with a beautiful, with a beautiful cover.
I like it. It's like a
designer.
little cheat sheet to get started on, the principles that you discussed here. I like it. I'm going to check it out. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michele. I'm really looking forward to meeting you next month in Charlotte.
Exactly. Me too. And Luann, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. This was pretty fun for me to listen to Michele and I speak to each other way back when, the very first time. The thing is, I know me, and I don't know if you know me well enough to hear what I heard as I re-listened to the show. I actually could hear my simmering excitement at meeting such a #smart lady. I knew it when I was talking to her. I remember thinking it then, and I can hear it in my voice in this replay, how Michele was knocking me out with her passion and her straightforward ability to deliver solid advice and strategies. And the thing that I love is, as I've come to know Michele over these last couple of years and work with her, my respect and admiration for her has only grown and deepened. Just this month, we got to spend tons of time together. As you know, I held my first live conference here in New Jersey a few weeks ago, Luann Nigara Live. It's about the conversation. And Michele, of course, joined me since she's a co-author in my book, and she was a panelist at the event. So not only did we have those 3 days, which ended on Monday, then on Wednesday, Michele and I both flew together to Boston to speak together at the Boston Design Center for the Global Design Post. And then on Friday, we went to High Point and we stayed together in the same house for the High Point trip. So when I tell you that Michele is genuinely a kind person, that she is an outstanding business owner, and that she is a dedicated coach and a dear friend, I know what I'm talking about, and you can take my word for it on this, okay? Now, if you were one of the almost 200 interior designers that were with us in New Jersey, then you already know just what I'm talking about, okay? And I'll tell you, too, if you ever have the opportunity to see Michele speak live at any event, whether it's one of my upcoming events or at High Point or at the IWCE, take the opportunity and go see her. You will not be disappointed. I promise you, 100%, okay? Now, a couple things from the show today. Resources for you that I thought I should just expound on. Michele and I talked about the IWCE and about the WCAA. Since our conversation in 2017, I have become a national board member of the WCAA. And I want you to understand how and why I think the WCAA is valuable to you as an interior designer to become a member, okay? So the first thing is that you know that I know that you can make good money if you are specifying window treatments on every project, as many projects as you possibly can. And if you are not specifying window treatments, or if you are in the habit of only specifying ready-made window treatments, then you are leaving money on the table. It's plain and simple. I promise you that, okay? So why do I say that as an interior designer, there's value for you to be in the WCAA? Well, here's the thing. In order to specify window treatments, you need to increase your knowledge and your expertise in them, right? And of course, the WCAA has all sorts of resources for you to do that. They have webinars. The website is loaded with information. There's tons of ways for you to do that, in addition to the chapter meetings across the country that meet. But here's the other thing. I'm just going to tell you. What's your most important asset in specifying window treatments for your clients? Like, hands up, right? What's your first thing? It's your window treatment supplier, right? It's your window treatment vendor, right? It's so funny because we're all always saying, where do you find a good contractor? Where do you find a good window treatment vendor? Where do you find a good this? Well, guess what? We're all hanging out at the WCAA. Like, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? So the thing is, by becoming a member of the WCAA, you will increase your expertise and your knowledge and your comfort with window treatments so that you can specify them and you can make more money. And you also will meet all of the people in your area that are the professionals at making window treatments, okay? So you're going to find people like me, like Window Works, who are a service for designers, right? You know, I'm not a fabricator. I don't have a workroom. I'm a service for designers. I will take care of helping you specify them. I will help you. I will do the measuring for you. I will place the orders for you. I will receive them. I will monitor them, and I will install them. But at the WCAA, you have companies like mine, and you also have the actual fabricators there, the people that are workrooms and that make window treatments. So whichever way you decide you would rather work, we're all hanging out over there. Okay, so it's a no-brainer. So this is how you can, on a very casual, non-confrontational way, get to know the window treatment professionals in your neck of the woods and make a quality decision on who fits right with you and you would like to work with to help you grow your window treatment business, okay? Now, the other and to find out about it, go to WCAA.org, all right? The other resource that we talked about is the IWCE, the International Window Covering Expo. The next conference is coming up in March 2020, and it will be in Charlotte. I'll be there. Michele will be there. This is the place also to take some classes, see product demonstrations, and meet the pros that you can hire to make your window treatments for your projects, okay? And I would tell you that it's really terrific to see the big vendor floor. This is a big conference, so you get to see like Comfortex will go there, and Coolies will go there, and Kirsch will go there, and and Anderson Fabrics will go there. They will have full-on displays so that you can see the products, you can see how they work, you can see how they look. It's really a great resource if you are thinking about being more intentional about specifying window treatments, which I hope that you are, okay, because there's dollar bills there, all right? So at the very least, I hope that you are receiving your free subscription to the Window Fashion Vision magazine. This is free if you're in the industry. So to get your copies, go to subnow.com/Luann. So it's subnow.com/Luann. You'll sign up and then yours will come to you in the mail. It's full of education, product news, business articles, everything designed to help you be more productive and successful. Okay? And that's what it's all about, right? We want to do something every single day to help us be better business owners, maybe to be a better employee, to help the initiatives of the company that you work for, whatever it is. We want to do something every day that we intentionally do something that helps us be more productive and more profitable, right? You got to decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of Window Works, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.